Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar. Here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Big bank earnings continue to lift Wall Street. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley and Bank of America beat estimates, but uncertainty over tariffs keeps the gains in check. US President Trump announces a trade deal with Indonesia and says a deal with India is progressing along the same line. US will impose 19% tariffs on Indonesian goods and Jakarta will not impose any tariffs on American goods. India's largest bank announces its first equity fundraise in 8 years. SBI launches a 25,000 crore rupee qualified institutional placement at a floor price of 811 rupees. This is nearly a 3% discount to the current market price. Government likely to consider increasing the foreign direct investment limit for public sector banks. Sources say Indian banks need more capital and consolidation of PSU banks is not ruled out. That's an exclusive. 89% of adult Indians own a financial account, according to the World Bank's Financial Inclusion Index. But despite the growth, India still ranks among nations where a large number of adults do not own a bank account due to its population size. Ola, Uber and drivers of other cab aggregators go on strike in Mumbai, demand implementation of aggregator rules and pay parity with regular taxi services. The prices rise on taxi apps as lack of drivers leads to surge pricing. Karnataka government issues a draft notification to cap prices at movie theatres and multiplexes at 200 rupees per ticket. If implemented, the move could dent the revenues and profits of PVR Inox. Congress demands a nationwide caste census. The party's OBC Advisory Council passes the Bengaluru Declaration, which also demands breaking the 50% limit on reservation to other backward classes. Israel launches air attacks on Syrian government forces and the country's defense ministry in Damascus. Syrian forces enter Suwada, where militants belonging to the minority Druze community are engaged in clashes with government loyalists. President Trump says U.S. Attorney General should release credible information on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson calls for the release of all Epstein files as Republicans face a rare backlash from their supporters. Also on the show, another year, same story. The monsoon season exposes cracks in Mumbai's civic infrastructure yet again. Roads repaved or retarred just a few weeks back disintegrate after just a few hours of rainfall. Well, let's begin with the day's trading action. The Sensex and the Nifty ended with minor gains after a range-bound session. The Nifty managed to remain above the 25,200 levels, while the Sensex ended above 82,600. The market breadth favored advances. 3 stocks advanced for every 2 declines. Well, now to action coming in from the Wall Street. Strong set of numbers. Earnings coming in from big banks are boosting investor sentiment. Goldman Sachs, Bank of America and Morgan Stanley beat the estimates in the second quarter. This comes a day after Citigroup, Wells Fargo and JP Morgan also beat the expectation. While bank stocks are providing ammunition to the bulls, tech stocks are lagging behind due to uncertainty over tariffs. More action from the US. US President Donald Trump has hinted at a deal between India and the US that would grant American exporters access to Indian markets. He also said that the deal would be similar to the one being negotiated and finalized with Indonesia. Washington reached a trade deal with Jakarta, which will see US impose 19% tariffs on Indonesian goods, down from the earlier 32% threat. Trump has said that Indonesia will charge no duties on American goods under this deal.
So we made a deal with Indonesia. I spoke to their really great president, very popular, very strong, smart, and we made the deal. We have full access to Indonesia, everything. As you know, Indonesia is very strong on copper, but we have full access to everything. We will pay no tariffs. So they are giving us access into Indonesia, which we never had. That's probably the biggest part of the deal. And the other part is they are going to pay 19%, and we are going to pay nothing. I think it's a good deal for both parties. But we will have full access into Indonesia.
Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte warned Brazil, China and India that they could be hit very hard by secondary sanctions if they continue to do business with Russia. Rutte told the leaders of the three nations to call Russian President Vladimir Putin and push for serious peace talks with Ukraine. This after President Donald Trump threatened secondary tariffs of 100% on the buyers of Russian exports unless there is a peace deal in 50 days.
Listen, if you are the president of China or the prime minister of India or the president of Brazil, and you are still trading with the Russians and getting the oil and the gas in, and you sometimes even resell it for a higher price, know that if this guy in Moscow doesn't get serious about peace talks, I will slam secondary sanctions on you of 100%. So I'm sure they don't know yet what hit them. This will take some time to sink in, and I think you guys making this clear in the media, the senators maybe also discussing this with their counterparts in Brazil, India, China, will be very helpful to put maximum pressure on Russia.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he may impose tariffs on pharmaceutical products as soon as the end of the month. The president added that U.S. will start with a low tariff and give pharma companies a year to bring manufacturing back to the United States. He will then announce very high tariffs. Trump also said that this timeline for implementing tariffs on semiconductors was also similar.
Pharmaceuticals will be tariffed probably at the end of the month. And we're going to start off with a low tariff and give the pharmaceutical companies a year or so to build. And then we're going to make it a very high tariff because we got to move them in. Look, there's two ways you do it. You make money or you have them move here so they don't have to pay the tariff. Those are the two ways. The pharmaceutical companies are moving back to America where they should be.
Well, staying with Donald Trump, the U.S. president has said that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is among the people who are being considered to replace Jerome Powell as the chairman of the Federal Reserve. However, Trump added that he likes the job that Bessent is currently doing, and hence he is not among the top choices. Yesterday, Bessent had confirmed that the process to appoint the next Federal Reserve chair has begun. President Trump has repeatedly criticized Powell and pressurized him to cut interest rates.
Scott Bessent, your Treasury Secretary, your number one option whenever Jerome Powell leaves or...
Well, he's an option.
Is he your top?
And he's very good. Well, he's not because I like the job he's doing. Right. That's why he's not been developer. I like the job. I don't know if he was on the plane. Was he not the plane? Maybe he wasn't. But I do like the job he's done, right? So, in that sense, probably he's not that much of an option, right? Scott's been great. He's been terrific.
And speaking of the Fed, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon has defended the independence of the Fed chair, saying that it is absolutely critical. He said, and I quote, "Playing around with the Fed can often have adverse consequences, the absolute opposite of what you might be hoping for," end of quote. Dimon became the first leader of a major U.S. financial institution to address the Trump administration's attacks on Powell. Speaking during the bank's earnings call, Dimon also warned that Trump's tariff policies pose significant risks to the U.S. economy. Meanwhile, the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, is on his third trip to China in the first 7 months of this year alone. His trip coincided with the Trump administration lifting curbs on the company, allowing it to sell high-end chips to China. The leader of the newly minted $4 trillion company met with top Chinese officials and CEOs as NVIDIA hopes to expand its business in China.
China is moving incredibly fast because the model layer with DeepSeek and Alibaba QN and Moonshot, Kimi, right? All excellent technologies. And in fact, DeepSeek is the world's first open source reasoning model. And it was a breakthrough. No question, a breakthrough.
Back home, SBI will launch a qualified institution placement offer to raise up to 25,000 crore rupees. The indicative offer price will be from 807 to 832 rupees per share. That's a discount of up to 3% on the stock's closing price today. Sources tell CNBC TV 18 that LIC is likely to bid for shares worth over 5,000 crores. Well, time now for a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. The government is likely to consider increasing the foreign direct investment limit for public sector banks. Sapna Das is joining us now with more exclusive details. Sapna.
Well, I think the intent of the government is pretty much clear. They want to have larger and bigger banks, and probably one of the ways to do that is to look at the next round of public sector bank mergers. Now, that may be feasible among some of these smaller entities in the PSB space. We are aware of the fact that the last merger round took place in 2019, and looking at the massive changes that have happened in the banking ecosystem, probably PSB merger round 2 is something that the government is likely to mull on. That's one. Second, they may also look at consolidation among the 100% government-owned insurance companies. There had been a lot of talk and discussion, a few years back. Probably that concept is back at the drawing table. We'll have to wait and watch and see how this works out and what are the timelines that the government is talking about. Last but not the least, and probably one of the most significant, that is basically to attract more foreign capital. It may also be likely that the government could look at revising or raising the foreign investment cap of 20% for public sector banks. Now, since time immemorial, this cap has really not moved. And irrespective of the fact that, there could be enough threshold available even currently for FIS to invest, but the fact remains that as a signal and also in an attempt to, garner more capital, something may be possible on that front. Some kind of tweaking, some kind of raising of the limit is something the government may look at. So these are big steps which are part of a financial sector reform agenda to prepare India for a Viksit Bharat. We'll have to wait and watch and see how this really works out.
Right, Sapna, thanks a lot for that. Now, HDFC Bank's board will meet on July 19th to consider issuing bonus shares and a special interim dividend for FY26. If approved, this would be the bank's first ever bonus issue. The decision will also be subject to regulatory approvals. The HDFC Bank stock has surged more than 23% over the past year. And on to the earnings reported today. Tech Mahindra's first quarter revenue missed the expectations marginally. The IT services firm's fall in constant currency revenue was also larger than expected compared to the last quarter. However, dollar revenue met with the expectations, growing at 1% sequentially. Margins were also in line with estimates. Meanwhile, L&T Technology Services posted a mixed performance for the June quarter. Quarterly profits surpassed expectations, rising by 1% compared to the last quarter. Revenues missed expectations, falling 4% sequentially, but rising 16% compared to last year. The company's operating earnings also fell short of expectations. And shares of Network 18 rallied as much as 15% after the company posted strong numbers in the June quarter. Net profit standalone stood at 516 rupees per however, revenue saw a dip due to a high base from last year's election-linked advertisements. June quarter EBITDA increased by 69%. A standard disclaimer, CNBC TV 18, the channel you're watching, is a part of Network 18 Group. Now, the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs is likely to allow coal PSU NLC India to invest further in renewable energy. Sources tell CNBC TV 18 that the approval will allow NLC to exceed the permitted investment threshold in a joint venture. NLC India's shares surged following this news. And the Supreme Court has overturned a High Court order in a dispute between a subsidiary of JSW Energy and the government of Himachal Pradesh. The Apex Court ordered JSW Hydro Energy to supply 18% free power to the state. The company had argued it was required to supply no more than 13% as free power as per the tariff regulations. JSW Hydropower operates 2 projects in Himachal Pradesh with a combined capacity of nearly 1,400 megawatts. Now, Jio BlackRock has secured approval from SEBI to launch 4 passive index funds. These include 3 equity-linked funds tracking Nifty Midcap 150, Nifty Small Cap 250 and Nifty Next 50. The 4th fund is a debt-focused fund that will track Indian government bonds with 8 to 13 years maturity. Earlier this month, the AMC had also raised nearly 18,000 crore rupees across its debut debt schemes. Now, Uber and Ola drivers and other gig economy workers across Maharashtra staged a flash protest at Azad Maidan yesterday. The drivers' demands include pay parity with taxi drivers. The protests continue today with hundreds of drivers staying off the roads. This led to a shortage of taxis in Mumbai and surge pricing on the applications. It was not just taxi drivers. Other gig workers also are demanding the implementation of the aggregator policy, which will regulate several app-based companies and provide insurance to workers. 89% of adult Indians own a financial account, according to the World Bank's Financial Inclusion Index. But despite the growth, India still ranks among the nations where a large number of adults do not own a bank account due to its sheer size of the population. Ritu Singh is joining us now with more details. Ritu.
The world has made unprecedented progress in financial inclusion, with nearly 8 out of every 10 adults globally having a financial account, but stark inequalities still persist. Let's start with India, where the World Bank's Global Findex 2025 report shows that as of 2024, 89% of Indian adults had a financial account, which is up from 77.5% in 2021 and a massive leap from just 35% in 2011. And it's not just urban or wealthy users. 89.2% of women and nearly 90% of rural adults have accounts today. But here is the problem. As many as 14% of adults or 16% of all account holders have inactive accounts. That's problematic because it's over double the global inactivity rate of 6%. Now, on the tech side, 66.5% of adults in India have their own mobile phones, while 42% have a smartphone, but just 38% use a password on their phone, which raises red flags about digital safety. There is a bright spot, though. The gender gap in active account usage is closing. It dropped from 12 percentage points in 2021 to 7 in 2024, thanks to women receiving more government payments directly into their accounts. Now, if we zoom out globally, 79% of adults worldwide have a financial account now, which is up from 74% in 2021. More people are also saving formally, but despite this progress, there are still 1.3 billion adults in the world that remain unbanked, and more than 650 million of them live in just 8 countries, including India, China, Nigeria, Pakistan, and a few others. Now, the World Bank says mobile technology is the key to bridging this gap, and the good news is that 900 million unbanked adults already own a mobile phone, and over 500 even have smartphones, which means the infrastructure is already there, and platforms like India's UPI and Brazil's Pix can unlock financial access at scale.
And coming up, the monsoon season exposes cracks in Mumbai's civic infrastructure yet again, and roads repaved or retarred just weeks ago. That and more when we return. And you can also catch all CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, and Jio Hotstar. You are watching India Business Hour. Now, Israel launched airstrikes on the Syrian Defense Ministry in country's capital, Damascus, after threatening to expand its offensive if Syrian forces did not withdraw from Suwaida in the southern part of the country. Israel has claimed its attacks are meant to protect the Druze community, which Tel Aviv sees as potential allies. The Druze are a minority community and are an offshoot of a branch of Shia Islam. They have been engaged in a conflict with forces loyal to the Syrian government. Now, at least 21 people were killed, including 15 from a stampede and suffocation due to tear gas being fired at Palestinians seeking food. The incident took place at one of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's aid distribution hubs. This as the Israeli army's attacks killed over 90 Palestinians in the last 24 hours. Ukraine has said that Russia launched 400 drones across cities overnight. Ukrainian President Zelensky said that the large-scale, long-range attacks targeted energy infrastructure. Local officials have said that at least 2 people have been killed in the overnight strikes. U.S. President Donald Trump's top ally, House Speaker Mike Johnson, has urged the Justice Department to release documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. Johnson is the latest addition to conservatives who have been calling for a full transparency in this case. The U.S. Justice Department ruled Epstein's 2019 death a suicide and refused to release his alleged client list last week. Reacting to it, the U.S. president said that he doesn't understand why anyone would be interested in this case, calling it sordid but boring.
The credible information's been given. Don't forget, we went through years of the Mueller witch hunt and all of the different things, the Steele dossier, which was all fake. All that information was fake. But I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring.
The Congress Party's OBC Advisory Council, chaired by Karnataka's Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, has unanimously passed the Bengaluru Declaration demanding a national-level caste census. The declaration also calls for breaking the 50% cap on reservations, thereby ensuring suitable quotas for OBCs in education, jobs, politics, and private institutions. The Chief Minister also thanked party leader Rahul Gandhi for championing the cause of social justice. Protests erupted outside the Odisha Assembly after a 20-year-old college student died after setting herself ablaze. The situation turned tense as police used water cannons and tear gas to disperse the crowd. The student had accused her college professor of harassment and reportedly reached out to multiple authorities for help. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee led a protest in Kolkata against the alleged harassment of Bengali-speaking people in BJP-ruled states. The protest came ahead of Prime Minister Modi's visit to the state. Banerjee also accused the state of influencing the Election Commission to serve its political ambitions and warned of serious political consequences if the harassment did not stop. Now for Mumbai, the monsoon means waterlogged roads, traffic jams, collapsing bridges, flooded train tracks, open manholes, and falling trees and branches. It's been this way for many years now, despite the BMC and the state government claiming to be spending crores of taxpayer money to make the city world-class. CNBC TV 18 Santya Gora reports that the rains this year have once again exposed the abysmal infrastructure conditions in India's financial capital.
These were the first monsoon rains of 2025 and Mumbai's infrastructure buckled. Roads were waterlogged, train tracks were submerged, causing cancellations and stranding thousands of commuters. And the Maharashtra government's latest project to be finished, the 37,000 crore rupee aqua line of the Mumbai Metro, was added to the casualty list. The Acharya Atre Chowk station on this line, which is bang in the middle of the commercial hub of Worli and is wholly underground, had to be closed due to flooding. Right now, we are in Mumbai's BKC area, a key corporate hub of the financial city. But despite all that, you can see the condition of one of its key junctions, roads full of potholes and top layer of the road coming off in places. And this is just one junction in the BKC area. Mumbai's bad roads are not new. But what residents find frustrating is that many of the roads that have disintegrated with the forced showers were retarred and repaved just a week, if not months earlier, at great inconvenience to commuters.
आप आपने ये देखा और बोलो तो मैं आपको आगे दिखाऊं, देखो और उसके आगे चलोगे तो आपको दिखाऊं, ये ट्रेड सेंटर है उधर आपको दिखाऊं और उसके आगे जो शोरूम है वहाँ देखो कितना रोड बनवा दिए, मट्टी निकाल के रखी है, फिर बारिश में खड्डों में जा रही.
And even the bridges, the potholes, it's gotten way worse. And now that monsoons come over, like it's unidentifiable. There have been so many times where I've slipped and into the potholes, and to be honest, it's not really safe to walk during the monsoons. You have to take an auto or a car because it's gotten worse, especially in this area and over there in the Andheri East, near the flyover. Yeah, so there is actually a flyover over there which is used to cross the road, and I'm not joking when I say that half of the flyover, there's a hole in between. A person could fall down, and it's very horribly built. So yeah, this is my daily route from office, so I know how it is. Even the flyover over there, fully filled with potholes. It's always flooded.
रोड में बहुत गड्ढे हैं, अपने को रोड बहुत तकलीफ रहता है और अपनी क्या है ना कमरे में बहुत दर्द रहता है, इसके लिए रोड के बारे में बताते हैं मगर रोड बना नहीं पाते हैं.
रोड में तो बहुत गड्ढा है, सरकार खाली वादा करता है, काम तो पूरा करता नहीं है. जहाँ जहाँ गड्ढा है थोड़ा कर देता है, फिर बाद में वैसे ही हो जाता है.
This flies in the face of the Mahayuti government's claims that it is giving Mumbai's infrastructure not just a facelift, but a makeover with stronger bones. Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis has been projecting himself as the flag bearer of infrastructure, as has Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, who promised to make Mumbai pothole-free in 2 years, and that was over 3 years ago. This year, right before the monsoon, Eknath Shinde once again claimed that Mumbai and all the roads in Mumbai would be pothole-free this season. But as you can see, this patch this road has a different tale to tell. Right now, we are in Mumbai's Santa Cruz area, and you can see this is a long patch. You can see this pothole-ridden road, and you can see the poor quality patchworks, poor quality fillings. This spot is like many other spots in Mumbai, exposing the quality of infrastructure in Mumbai. Official data shows that in FY24, the state government's urban development department spent 745 crore rupees on roads and bridges alone. This was both for repairs and construction of new roads and bridges. For FY25, state budget documents show a revised estimate of 413 crore rupees under this head. Now by 2024, the BMC was to concretize 700 kilometers of roads over two phases, 324 kilometers in phase 1 and 377 kilometers in phase 2. But as of February 2025, only 26% of phase 1 has been completed. Despite being the financial capital of the country, Mumbai's infrastructure is crumbling, and it's a story that repeats every year, especially when the monsoons hit. For Mumbaikars, dealing with this has become a way of life, and promises of world-class infrastructure are just words that are losing their meaning. In Mumbai, Santiago.
A team from international fashion brand Prada visited Kolhapur to learn about the tradition of making Kolhapuri chappals. The Italian fashion house's designers met the Kolhapuri chappal craftsmen to learn about the nuances of their tradition. This visit came after Prada faced backlash for showing sandals resembling Kolhapuri chappals in its Spring-Summer 2026 men's collection. Meanwhile, Bombay High Court dismissed the PIL filed by 5 advocates over the alleged unauthorized use of their design. Lotus beds have reappeared at Kashmir's Wular Lake 30 years after a devastating flood had wreaked havoc on its ecosystem. What you can see on your screens are carpet of lotus beds in full bloom. The flood deposited a large quantity of silt in the lake that buried the lotus vegetation over the years. However, owing to conservation efforts, the lotus beds have reappeared. Located in Bandipura, Wular is Asia's second largest freshwater lake. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks so much for watching. News and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.